Terraria. What is perceived to be a poor man's Minecraft at first is actually 10 times better than it. I have never replayed a game as much as this one. I bought it on an iPad, Xbox 360, Xbox One, on my phone, and on my PC. This small indie game has brought me so much enjoyment for less than half of what AAA games have, and I'ma tell you why. You start the game by making a character in the world. You can make the game as hard or as easy as you want. I personally believe playing on expert is the way to go since I'm not a pussy bitch like DJ Khaled and can handle some kick. You miss out on boss items and different boss attacks in the regular mode, so it doesn't feel as complete. Master mode on the other hand is definitely not worth it unless you're a completionist. It's just a generic hardcore mode where they raise the slider on enemy stats to the max. All you get out of it are some cosmetic items and bragging rights that are not worth the pain. So you start your expert mode world and are thrown in the middle of a forest with nothing but basic tools and this weird guy who gives you loading screen tips in-game. This is where the first complaint of Terraria starts, because if you're a new player, you don't know how to do jack shit. Without looking up a guide or having a friend to help you, you'll alt-tab and close the game out of boredom. And for those determined to not get any help, I send you the Lord's blessing because I highly doubt anyone would be able to get the most out of the game that way. Figuring out how to craft the most basic things can be difficult. You can craft a workbench, sure, but then you need a furnace to start smelting better material. Then you'll need an anvil to actually make the tools. All of this was hard to figure out when my 12-year-old self was starting years ago. I actually gave up on the game and didn't touch it for a while because I didn't know how to progress. Not to mention the abundance of other crafting stations like a sawmill, loom, cooking pot, dye vat, bookcase, and legit like 10 other ones I won't mention. I specifically remember not knowing how to make a bed, so I looked it up and you have to go through so many hoops. I needed silk and wood, and you needed to be near a sawmill to make it. But I didn't know how to make a sawmill, so I looked that up. And you need wood, iron, and chains. So cool, I made the sawmill. But then I realized I had no idea how to get silk, so I looked that up, and it's made out of loom. But I didn't know how to make a loom, so I had to look that up too. Finally, I had all my shit together and made the stupid bed. It took 3 different crafting stations and 10 minutes of research to figure it out. If all of that confused you, that was my point. This is the same for tons of other items in the game, some of which are vital in expert mode. Also, since there's a lot of different crafting stations, you can't be near all 20 plus of them. So, you can't craft everything from one spot and have to move around your house to be near the right station. There's so many obscure things you'll never know how to do or get if you don't just look them up. For example, you have to build a house for NPCs to move in that have to meet certain conditions. You also just won't know how some items are sold from specific NPCs on certain moon phases. Huh? How some items sold depends on what biome the NPC lives in? How certain fish are needed for vital potions in the late game that have to be harvested in certain biomes? How certain enemies drop certain items that are needed for certain playstyles? There's this boss that requires you to catch a certain worm in a certain biome that you then have to cast on your fishing rod in the sea to actually summon. So as you can see, there's a lot of certainty going on in this game. Granted, none of these things are actually difficult, but how the fuck are you supposed to actually know this? There is absolutely no way you can jump into this game fresh and just know these things. The game abandoning you like a father out for milk is my only real issue. I had to practically beg 2 of my friends and promise some favors to play this with me because they found it so boring for the first few hours with the little knowledge they had. But with my only complaint out of the way, let's get into the positive, and boy, is there a lot. This is probably the best indie game ever made. I can't think of any other game that excels in so many different areas. Right out of the gate, you'll see how pretty this game looks. Even with the cliche art style like pixel art, it is some high quality stuff. Now at first when the game launched it might have looked a little rough. But like the kid at the back of the class who got better looking as the years went by, so did this game. And now they're out here to slay some The biomes all feel unique with their own background and theme. All the enemies have detailed sprites and the bosses are all the more impressive. The different forms of lighting spice up the look, whether it's coming from a torch, lava, or enemies. Trees sway in the wind, water flows off of ledges, there are animations in the backgrounds of biomes. The effects on some of the later weapons in the game make them feel sick as hell to use. It all adds to the polish and presentation of the game. Terraria has a charm unlike so many others. NPCs will squabble with each other in pictures, there are so many tiny animals that make the world feel lived in. You'll get a hyperbolic message explaining how you died, along with a tombstone so you don't forget. You'll eviscerate enemies and send them flying into pieces when you kill them. There are so many other tiny details that give the game its character that would take forever to go through. I feel like a big part of that character is the music that plays. I normally do not give 2 shits about music in video games because most of the time it's just serviceable. It's not until it's ultra terrible or really good that I feel like it plays into my opinion of a game. So you can probably guess which one it is for Terraria. Listen, man, I don't know who they had in the studio dropping these bangers, but they do not get enough credit. I remember going to the jungle for the first time and being like, oh god damn, this shit is catchy. And then I walk into the Crimson and I'm like, oh god damn, this shit is creepy. It has a good balance of being catchy and matching the situation you're in. The first boss theme is an excellent example of a track that is well made and also managed to scare the shit out of 12-year-old me. It's boopy, it's boppy, and it matches the theme of the art style too. Even though it falls into this pixel chiptune sound, it manages to spice it up and have its own Terraria flavor. Okay, I'm done talking about the extra stuff. How is the actual game? Amazing. That's how it is. It is one of the most video games out there, and I love it for that. While a lot of recent games are focused on delivering the most realism with the best sounds, the best graphics, and the best fish AI.
And also added an AI system to it, so we have fish move out of the way.
Terraria is more concerned with having the most fun as possible. Now I know I said the early game and the lack of direction can make it frustrating, but give it a chance. Trust me. One of the more satisfying things about this game is the progression. Slimes and zombies might give you a hard time, but a few hours later, you'll be giving them something hard, if you know what I'm saying. You start out naked with no armor or accessories, but soon you'll start finding things to deck yourself out with. Breaking pots, searching chests, mining, fucking up monsters will all net you with some sweet, sweet loot. And thus begins the gameplay loop of Terraria. Find shit, build shit, kill shit. It never gets boring doing those same 3 things. Let's break down each one. The game plops you on this immense world with 3 tools. A sword, a pickaxe, and an axe. And if this were 11-year-old me, I would have thought this was a boring 2D Minecraft ripoff immediately. So don't be retarded like I was and think the same thing. There are 7 different areas to be explored on the surface. And soon, you'll come across chests and maybe some surface structures to peruse and strip of their valuables. If you start digging down, you'll find even more areas to ransack. This is made exciting because of the variety of places to explore and the enormous amount of things to find. As big as the world is, there is no waste of space. Ores, abandoned cabins, chests, traps, minecart rails, mini and microbiomes litter the place like an elementary school after lunch. This shit is everywhere. You feel compelled to just keep poking around underground because you might stumble across something rare, like an enchanted sword shrine. Keep digging deeper, and you'll find yourself at the bottom of the world, where all my haters reside. No matter which way you go, you're running into new shit. Even if you go all the way up, you'll find some floating islands. Each main biome is essential when it comes to completing the game and finding materials that will help you in your playthrough. Once again, nothing feels out of place. Some of these games like to blow themselves to how massive their open world is, but just like a dick, if it's long and wide and it ain't packing the density, what's the point? You aren't gonna feel anything. That's why you know Terraria took a page from Arby's, because they are packing some serious meat. I'm looking like George Bush in this game because best believe there is no chest left behind. Sometimes you'll come across some areas you can't get to, or blocks you can't mine. It is simply the game gently pushing you away to do other things until you get the items to do so. And just how many items can you get in Terraria, since we're on the topic? Well, there are over 5,000 items you can hypothetically collect. Obviously, they're not all useful or unique. Many of them carry the same function, but still, that is an insane number. Okay, now think of Minecraft and all the shit you can have in that game. The item count is in between 400 to 500. I couldn't find an exact number from a 5-minute Google expedition, but goddamn, that comparison is crazy. Obviously, you have to craft some of those items, so let's get on to the build shit part. I already talked at length about how the crafting system isn't the best, but if you do your homework, it also isn't horrible. From the item count, you can probably guess the crazy amount of things to craft. All the furnishings you can think of, from yesterday's Taco Bell container to sick-ass weapons. There's also variations of the same item to cater to a certain theme or color you want. This is the part of the game that art majors bust to. So many things to make and build. All you have to do is go on Reddit or a Steam page to find some sweaty no-life tryhards who make some of the coolest shit I've seen. And even without the fancy art major constructions, there are other interesting creations you can make with wire. You can automate farms, make secret rooms, or traps even. There's also just dumb fun stuff you can make, like a roller coaster and golf courses. The creative aspect of Terraria is immense, and it is yet another thing it can add to its arsenal of fun. There is also a part of building that I call essential building. Being a sandbox, the game pushes you to interact with the world and put stuff in it. You have to construct a home not only for yourself, but also for NPCs so that they can move in and sell you some stuff like the shady roommates they are. Another good idea is to build an arena for boss fights. Usually, they're just some platforms with a lot of space, loaded with heart lanterns, campfires, and honey. You don't have to do any of these things, but it's mostly out of convenience for yourself anyway. It's the game subtly telling you to get off your ass and put something in the world. My homes don't get too fancy, and I construct the most basic arenas I can and just stick with that. One of the bosses, the Wall of Flesh, is practically impossible if you don't make a line of platforms at least a mile long. On top of building things in the world to help you out, you also have to craft things so that life isn't pure misery. There's a lot of cool stuff to make when you come back from an expedition, and if you want my advice, save everything. There have been countless times where I pick up some innocuous things like mushrooms and dump them, not realizing I needed them for health regen potions later. There's a shitload of things to make for yourself, from new armor, buffs, or a shiny new toy to wreck face with. There's a mechanic where you can combine accessories to stack their effects and save slot space. You'll always have a next thing to craft to make yourself OP. So now we found shit and built shit, let's go kill some. In the beginning, the combat system seems pretty basic. Swing sword for close range, use a bow for long range, throw random things in between for some extra damage. Later on though, you can start diversifying playstyles by equipping different armor sets and accessories that give your character new abilities or attributes. There are 4 main playstyles you can jump into: Warrior, Mage, Ranger, and Summoner. They introduced a throwing class in the last update, but it was really fucking lame and it never took off, so pour one out cause it's dead now. I personally like playing Mage and Warrior the most since the weapons are the coolest and they're the most involved, but to each their own. It's interesting tinkering around with accessories and different modifiers to fit your own playstyle. You can have a glass cannon build, tanky, crit, movement, it's Burger King up in this bitch, have it your way. All the classes feel viable, and there isn't one that really outshines the rest. Early in the game, it's easy to switch between the 4 if you feel like your current class isn't for you. Usually this can be done by just switching the helmet on an armor set to provide you with a different set bonus. Later on in the game you can still switch, but by then you'll probably have to grind out entire armor sets and late game accessories specific to the class. There are so many interesting weapons in this game no matter which class you pick. I was constantly saying shit like, yo, this is sick, when I came across new stuff to add to the arsenal. Swords that shoot swords, piss, a staff that rains meteors, a bow that rains stars, machine guns with homing bullets, laser guns. It feels satisfying turning enemies into bits and pieces with these. A little into the game, more movement options become available to you too. Grappling hooks, dashes, and wings are essential in keeping you alive. The enemies trying to kill you are really diverse in terms of how they look and attack, with a total of 372, dear lord. There's a typical fodder that you just ooga booga into with a big sword, and others that hit like a truck that require a little more caution. The more notable combat experiences are tied to boss battles though. You have to make sure you have all the potions on deck, find ways to squeeze out the most DPS, and build an arena to have the most optimal movement. Seriously, if you don't prepare enough, you will have your cheeks spread wide. If you go too long without fighting some of the bosses, they'll actually just summon themselves, which is fun. These guys hit like your mom after you spilled your Hawaiian punch on the carpet, so it's essential that you don't get hurt. In expert mode, a few bad plays will send you back to spawn. It's a fun balance of getting your damage in while avoiding it yourself. They all fight differently and require different strategies to beat. Given that there are 16 bosses you can fight in a playthrough, you're always going to have something fresh to fuck up. This mix of armor, movement, accessories, weapons, and enemy variety are what make the combat fun. When you throw in all these spices, you are left with a flavorful fighting experience. Those 3 things are essentially what the game boils down to, but boy, is it an addicting recipe. I'm sure Pablo Escobar would have sprinkled in some Terraria in his Coke, if he could. The progression of the game feels great. There's always something to do, because you need to go here to get this item so you can fight this boss that lets you go there so you can upgrade this, and so on and so on. I didn't even mention hard mode. After you beat the Wall of Flesh, about a quarter of the way through, your world gets put into hard mode, no matter which difficulty you selected. You get a new biome, new items, new enemies, and now they hit like your dad after you spilled Hawaiian punch on the carpet. This is where shit hits the fan, and the already great gameplay loop gets much better. You can lose so much time to sprucing up your town, maxing out your character, or doing fishing quests. I've played this game for about 225 hours, over multiple playthroughs, on just the PC alone. As you know, I still had 4 other platforms that I sink more time into. This is without the extra side things to do, so who knows how much more mileage other people have had. Let me hit you with some quick maths. The normal price for this game is $10. $10 divided by my 225 hours playing this game is 0.0444 cents for every hour of entertainment. If you only play through it once, you'd still be getting your money's worth, with a length of about 30 to 40 hours. Not to mention, this game is typically on sale for $5. That is less than a fucking Happy Meal. At that point, I'd start questioning my morals because it feels like I'm stealing. Quick comparison, Doom Eternal ran me $60, which I completed in 15 hours. Not to rag on Doom, I love it very much, I enjoyed it, it's a great game, but in terms of money and time spent, for me, Terraria had 90 times more value, strictly off of numbers. Terraria, an indie game. If you are remotely interested in this, I beg you to play it. You'll find something new to sink your life into. It has been updated and supported for almost 10 years. Jesus Christ. I don't know if I'd support my kids for that long. Every update has been free. There isn't a single piece of paid DLC or microtransactions. You can just tell this game was made with love. Look at how small the development team is. This is their baby. They even threw in their own custom armor sets and wings that players can obtain. Now that it has received its final update, it's the most complete it's ever been. It's impressive how far this game has come and just how much it offers. Please, for the love of God, pick up this game and you'll see why so many others rave about how goddamn good it is. It's better than nutting, I promise. Alright, bye bye.